All right, welcome everybody. This is a public meeting of the West Bend School District and School Board Curriculum Committee. It is 4:30 p.m. on December 10th, 2024, and we will start with introductions. My name is Melanie Ergott, School Board Member.
June Kruger, School Board Member.
Kelly Lang, School Board Member.
Quinn Trueblood, Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
Tina Van Roo, District Data and Assessment Coordinator.
Heather Isaacson, CNI Program Administrator.
All right, so it looks like we have one item for discussion today. It is the Q3 book club list, and I believe that will be presented by Dr. Trueblood.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to present to you two new titles from the 8th grade book club list. And I just wanted to frame it up a little bit because you are familiar from last year that in the third quarter, this is the genre of study for book club. And as we recall some of the conversations and points that were made in last year's discussion, this was the genre that did require some consideration for graphic violence, and sometimes for other elements that maybe were of some question. But now that the board has done, and the committee has done considerable amount of work to flesh out the definition of graphic violence and also the considerations for appropriateness, the CNI department did review and revet all of the dystopian books through the updated definition thresholds. And I think that was a very productive exercise because it indicates two things. One is that the revisions are very helpful to the process, and also that it did have some outcomes. And the general outcomes are you continue to move forward the books that were approved last year, or you remove books that were approved last year, but would not then pass the filter. And recall that if it doesn't pass the filter, it would not even come to the committee. So those are the two outcomes, and both of which happened to last year's list. So that is the framework. And I just wanted for audience members who are new to listening in, Dystopian series, there's an FAQ that was provided along with this list because it does, in very simple terms, create the case for the value of dystopian literature for young readers. And also, I think it's one of the rare genres that really stretches the imagination, but also introduces very, very abstract concepts to students who they can't experience legacy wars in the universe. They can't just do that because they live in hopefully very safe, nice homes that are warm. And they also can't really understand power and control and oppression and some of those other elements of society in a very direct, experienced way, as much as a writer might want to talk about it. So that's a true introduction to ways to think about how the world works and what you could do about it if you were confronted with some of these stressors. So it is an extraordinary genre, and I wanted to just state that there are incredible elements that you don't find in maybe other genres, and one would be just imagery is pretty powerful in these books, and also character development becomes very lively. The symbolism is quite rich, and also the element of flashbacks and themes really become magnified in this type of writing. It's harder to tease that out in other types of literature. For this one, it just kind of hits you right in the head, and I think that's part of the true engagement for readers in school. So I will stop at that, and I hope that anybody looking at our FAQ would start to, if you don't know about it, it's a good look at why we would want that to be available to our students. And so I'm happy that this 8th grade team is doing that. And then I will switch gears and introduce you to the two new titles for today's discussion. The first is from a series called The Maze Runner by James Dashner. And the two books prior to that really are prequels to the one that we're introducing for the committee's consideration. Is a third in the series. It's called The Death Cure. And the graphic violence, as we stated here, we don't issue the threshold here because of the genre, but what we want to do is describe kind of the piece for which here the main character is shot. There's a lot more to it, but it's the language in which that part of the plot or that part of the story is being described. So what we find all the time is that sometimes it's very graphic, but not violent, and sometimes it is violent, but not graphic. So in this case, it may be more than limited, but it is well situated in the genre. So that's why this book is coming to you for consideration. The second one is Mockingjay, and that's from a very popular series called The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, and that is also the third in the series. And what's kind of refreshing about the moment here is that these are the third books in the series, and they're very popular. And last year they weren't introduced because the threshold was very difficult to get across. But secondly, we also thought that there were a few students who really are very avid readers and would go through series, and what we had asked them to do last year was to choose another series and start book 1 and 2, as opposed to go on to the third book of the series that they really were passionate about. So I'm happy to introduce the third book to our students who are very much into both of these series.
All right, well, thank you for introducing those. I love the whole process that we have here, how everything's very transparent, right? I love that. I think it's very cool that it's part of a series that kids can already start reading earlier in the semester. I don't have any problems approving these. There are many other books on the list that, maybe have the not applicable in all of those categories for families that would be interested in that instead, but I do not have a problem with them.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like the series because I think when people are invested in characters, it just continues them reading. My son has read all of the Hunger Games series, and I read along with him at the same time because I was able to find them interesting as well. And he's in 8th grade now. He's read them already, and I loved that he couldn't wait for the next one because it's just really exciting to be you can't get enough of that relationship. And with so much technology that kids have, I feel like sometimes they need that character building because I don't know about you guys, but they don't watch TV shows. So they have no character development. So sometimes in books, it's they have that, they feel that character development. I love that. And so I appreciate the series of all of these. So I have no problem with these staying as well.
I would second both of their comments. I think that as students enjoy the series, this is just the natural outcome or the finale of what happens. I mean, you can't,
I see you have the book right there in front of you also.
Yes,
Ms.
I
Ruger.
grabbed this off of our bookshelf at home because we do have the series of the Hunger Games, and my high schooler did read the first book in 6th grade, and so we decided to get all 3 for home and enjoy pulling them off the bookshelf and reviewing them.
And you mentioned the development of characters through a very well-written series, and that is one of the literary elements, honestly, it's not as done well in print and not as done well in movies. Not as done. We don't have time for that, or our world has gotten so short with bytes and bytes of things everywhere, or bits and bits, and you have to true them together yourselves. So the thing that is beautiful in many of these works is that we call it character arc. Where's this character going, and how does this character develop and become that end point for which we have to say goodbye at some point? But that is something that stays with the reader a long time, as you're noting here. And so I think this is, if students haven't been really engaged in any books or series, this is the time that they will. I'm certain of it.
All right, are there any other questions or any comments that anybody has to add? Otherwise, we'll conclude our short meeting here. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kelly. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.